Welcome to the Pop Tower Podcast with your host, the man behind the myth, Peter Dawson, and the Soulful Lordy, James Bullock.
Yes, it is episode 76. I am Peter W. Dawson.
And I am James Dilly Dally Shilly Shally Bullock.
Yep. And we're about to talk about the most anticipated release of 2020. And it fits perfectly with the episode number. We're talking about Fallout 76.
The Wastelanders.
Yep. No, I'm just kidding. We are never talking about that on the show if I have my way. F that game. Oh, you added content like over a year after the game came out? Cool.
Yeah,
I don't care.
Yeah, the stuff that people were asking for when they first announced the game.
You had your shot. You missed. Still not sure how I feel about No Man's Sky. You really think I'm gonna? And apparently, still 76 still isn't that great.
Right. That's the thing. Like, honestly, I would have actually given 76 a second chance if not for the pure unadulterated fact that one of the missions completely broke, and of course that means you had to restart the whole thing. And I was like, no, I'm not putting myself through this. And that was like maybe 10 hours in. No, I'm not. I cannot invest my time in this. And like I said, No Man's Sky, played it when it first came out. I'm actually mad that I got trophies because I wish I could delete that and pretend like I never played it again.
So let's talk about something that is far less disappointing.
Yes.
The Final Fantasy VII Remake. Not without controversy,
no.
But definitely something different. Okay. So, for those of you just joining us, first of all, welcome to the show. I'm surprised you started with episode 76. Second of all, we're going to talk about... So, Final Fantasy VII is probably one of the most important games of all time.
Yeah, definitely.
Because it and Metal Gear Solid are probably two of the biggest console movers for the original PlayStation.
Yes.
I think that's fair to say. Which was the main alternative to the Nintendo 64, which is baffling because the Nintendo 64 should not have worked. Especially with, like, the weird controller and everything, but, like, the Sega's consoles just weren't working out. Which one came out around the same time as the 64? Was that the Saturn?
Saturn, yeah.
Yeah, the Saturn is beloved, and it does have some solid games, to be sure, but it's like, it just wasn't the same. Right. And then you got the PlayStation, which was just like, oh, hi, all the competition. It took until the PS2 era for a competitor to show up in the form of the Xbox. Even then, it didn't really take off until 360.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing because you look back, like, those kind of intermediates when it comes to console releases during that time, like, and ironically enough, Sega's like one of those things where you had the Sega Saturn come out, and then, like you said, N64 comes out and blows it out the water.
Yep.
Dreamcast comes out, great system. PlayStation 2 comes out, blows it out the water.
It happens. I am glad that we're getting some sequels and remakes to Sega classics.
Yeah. Ironically enough, I just finished playing Sakura Wars. So
that fits.
Yeah.
Well, they've released a few since then on other consoles as well. So. But yeah, like that never got, I think, a big release in the West, and now it
got one.
The new one was
the fifth one came out, and that was it.
Yeah.
And that was like the worst part about the fifth one came out, and it came out on PlayStation 2 in 2010.
Yep, that happened.
Unlike this game that came out in 1997 originally on the PlayStation. The perfect time, because it was right at... PlayStation had been out, for 2 years at that point? So, we had this monumental game that comes out, and I don't know if you're in the same camp as I am, but I distinctively remember seeing the commercials come on.
Oh, yeah, me too.
Yeah, and, I mean, they promoted like this was a blockbuster. You know, the largest game ever worked on by a production company. And I'm watching this just enthralled the whole time because I have no idea what's happening. But I want to play this.
Because, Square-Enix games, especially in the day, got super hyped.
Yes.
Because, like, they were just coming off the SNES, which is arguably the only other console where Square Enix really thrives.
Mm-hmm.
Like, PS2 is when it kind of slowed down a bit because, well, I mean, granted, this is the era of Squaresoft, I should say.
Right, and the thing about it when it comes to the PS2 era, actually had a lot of good competition, too, when it came to RPGs. Like,
oh, yeah, absolutely.
It was kind of crazy because I think you'll agree with it, like you said, Final Fantasy VII being one of the more important games of all time, it kind of exposed the RPG genre to a bigger audience. So,
or at least the JRPG genre, yeah.
Yeah, and especially on consoles. Like, PC is one thing, but on consoles it still was kind of a niche to the extent of not a lot of people were playing about it or talking about it until Final Fantasy VII came out. And then, like you said, by the time PlayStation 2 came out, there were a lot more companies willing to do JRPGs, or at least the companies that were porting them to the West, and they were greatly accepted. And then, of course, we come to the next gen where it became shoot 'em up, bang bang first-person shooters. And unfortunately, we really don't have that JRPG influence, or at least that rabid fan base and craving for them like we did back then.
No, I mean, it was one of the reasons I loved the Persona games so much is because they captured that classic RPG spirit, and they were still doing it as it was, and it really kind of goes to show what they've been trying to do with the remake here, because they wanted to keep, like, we'll get into it now, so 23 years after the original game came out, Part 1 of the FF7 Remake series comes out. We don't know how many parts it is.
Right.
It's worth pointing out they adapted about 10% of the original game for this. Because, it doesn't cover the whole game by any stretch of the imagination.
No, you are... And this is something that we've known about pretty early in the development.
Yeah.
Close to the release, I should say, not early in the development, because they were just showing the Midgard section, the early portion of the Midgard section. It's pretty much like pre- and post-bombing mission. And they just kind of gave you the idea, like, okay, this is what you're going to get, but on a grand scale. You're going to get the whole game. And then after a while, they announced, no, you're just going to get this small portion of what was the original games is 4 to 5 hours.
Yep.
Expanded at least 30 to 40 hours.
Oh, yeah. I was at 44, but I did spend about 2 hours grinding at one point, so...
Yeah, no, I think I was, like, close to 50, but I don't know, like, how much I was by the time, like, I finished, like, trophy hunting and everything else. I still haven't played on hard mode, though, too much, so I still...
I still haven't done that either.
Yeah, it's one of those things I kind of want to go back to. I just wanted to maybe give it a breather and then come back to it later on.
Oh, exactly. Like, I'm playing through Persona 5 Royal.
Right.
Plug for a potential future
episode.
Yeah, no, like... This was announced way back in 2015, but apparently real development didn't start until 2017.
Right.
Which is fascinating, because they had that demo and everything in 2015. Or not that demo, that trailer, but apparently that was all there was.
Exactly.
Yeah. So they brought back some of the original crew. Like, what's kind of cool is even Nobuo Uematsu.
Yes.
Who was the Final Fantasy composer for a long time. Like, he did so many iconic Final Fantasy themes. Like, it's one of the reasons, even the games I don't consider as good, like, you know very well my problems with 10.
Yeah.
Music is not one of them.
Yes.
Very much not one of them. So it was cool to have some of his stuff brought back.
Yeah.
Like, he didn't do, I think, that much. I think he just kind of redid.
Yeah, he just remade a few of the a majority of the songs, including like some of the stuff that we would associate, of course, with later parts of the overall Final Fantasy VII story. And we got like the little jukebox, so you can hear some of those themes.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because he did it with two other artists, Sashi Hama. I can't really bad Japanese names at the best of times. Or I went to Japan, I should know how to pronounce these things. No, I shouldn't. I've still got the whitest mouth you know. What, I'm wrong.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Anyway, yeah, I'm just going to give up because I don't want to butcher any more names right now. The only other, sorry, I can't remember. Did we just say Tetsuya Nomura's name?
No, we haven't.
We have to name drop him because that's very important for what we're getting into.
Very much so.
Oh boy!
It's a dream drop himself.
So it's worth noting that Tetsuya Nomura who started as a character designer, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because he did the character designs for Final Fantasy VI, actually, which is my favorite in the franchise. Like, 7 is a pretty close second, but I do always love 6 more.
Yeah, 6 and 7 are like neck and neck. Like, it depends on when you started, when you were gaming, when you were enjoying Final Fantasy games or just JRPGs in general. And more than likely, like, 6 or 7 is going to be your number 1 and number 2. Depending on the day, it could be either one.
Yeah, and like, you know, there's some people, of course, who are ride or die for 8. A lot of people love 10.
Yeah. And one thing I will say, when it comes to 8, I will wholeheartedly say that has the best Final Fantasy soundtrack.
I disagree, but it definitely has some really good tracks.
What's your favorite outside of probably 6?
I
love 7. I love 9. 9 is very underrated.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because, like, you know, it's probably 10.
Oh, well, I will not argue against you on that, too. Like, 10 is, for me, like, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10 are just ear candy through and through.
Yeah. Although, I'm trying to remember which one. I think it's 11 has some really good tracks, too, even though it's an MMO.
Right.
Like some of the village themes in particular are really good in that one. Like you know, one of the classics in 8 is of course the garden theme.
Yeah.
Because that's actually a very good chill theme.
Yes.
But and then you look at like 10 and like the basic piano, which doesn't play as well to people today if they've watched any generic teen supernatural drama, because they use that same method a lot and it's not as good. So it can still play less weak, but like that slow piano bit. And then of course 4. We should probably mention 4 real quick, just because we're at the part of the thing where we should talk about the game, but we've got to talk about our love for the Final Fantasy franchise.
Yes.
And 4 has one of the probably most important themes in the whole franchise, because this is one taught by professional composers, which is the theme of love. Because that's a very good theme.
Yes.
And it's all violin. It's very well done. And like that's another one that's usually in the people's top 5, if nothing else, because it's probably got one of the strongest. It's still kind of strange narratives.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But it's like
it's one of those ones where it starts off pretty rooted, and then it just goes in a different direction. Yeah. But it's still done incredibly well. Like it's amazing how forgiving we are to certain aspects of it, because it's still done very well in the way that it's presented.
Oh yeah, well, it's like I said, 6 is easily my number 1, 7 is easily my number 2, but then like my other top 3 are probably some combination of 4, 9, and then either tactics if I can count it, or if you don't want to count tactics, probably 10.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, like I said,
but I mean, 10 would be number 5.
Right, if we could throw tactics.
Are you really
in
that
there,
shocked?
that would be awesome. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, you like I said, I'm not so cheesed at that game.
Oh,
I
no,
will
not at all.
You know, because like I think I've mentioned before, it's probably got the best battle system.
Yes.
If nothing else, and like I said, the music and the cutscenes are. But okay, let's. Sorry, do you want to gush on anything else before?
No. Let's gush on this one.
All right, so let's actually talk about the remake. So, the remake, like we mentioned, we name dropped Tetsuya Nomura. He was basically the guy in the Kingdom Hearts series, and and he was the director of Advent Children too. Come to think of it.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Which is relevant because there's definitely a bit of Advent Children in this as well. You know, some concepts that weren't really realized in the original game that much, but Advent Children still continued to build from.
Yeah.
And they made sense. So what you get is a game that plays kind of like a Kingdom Hearts game, but probably does the best job integrating action elements into a Final Fantasy game yet.
Yes.
Like, it's probably the best battle system since 10, in my opinion.
Yeah. I was actually trying to go through my mind, like, what have I played that would be better when it comes to a Final Fantasy game, and you are correct. I would say probably since 10, this is definitely the most enjoyable battle system they've had.
Yeah, because, 11 was okay, but it was still, the MMO problem. 12 was alright, but it was kind of clunky.
Yeah.
And then you got 13, which was just infamous.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, and the sequels had better systems, but they still weren't great.
But no, not at all.
And then 14 was really bad when it started. I think it's
my
better
goodness,
now.
yes. And we talk about like
Good
Fallout
Lord, that was one of the
76.
worst.
Like this was Final Fantasy 14 before Fallout 76. Like this was.
Oh yeah.
That was rough. But
and then 15 was all right, but
yeah, the biggest problem with 15, and this is actually something we would probably bring up too, is the implementation of magic in the game. But also, I just hate the fact there was no difficulty. Like really, you can never die in that game unless you wanted to.
Pretty much. Yeah, in this case, we like they have a proper magic system again. They bring back the ATB concept, the active time battle. Yeah, which is like as battle continues, your meter fills up, and then you can take an action. In this case, you can always attack, move, dodge, block, whatever. But to do your super moves, you need a full ATB, or you need a portion of your ATB gauge filled. So that really kind of changes the dynamic, because that also means if you're in a pinch, you can't heal. Yeah,
because the ATB bar controls your abilities, your magic, and your items. So there will be times where you have to choose, what is the most beneficial usage of my ATB bar. And when it comes to some of the latter battles, it is imperative. Because, as you know, this is not a typical turn-based RPG, so you're not controlling everyone at one time. You have to switch around with whatever characters you have available, and the computer's ATB bar never grows as fast as when the person is actually using that character. So you have to switch around.
Yeah, because they just don't attack or whatever as fast as you do.
Yeah, usually they're mostly guarding. They're always, and that's one that I didn't notice until later. Compared to like Final Fantasy 15, that's one that I will give Final Fantasy 15 over this when it comes to the battle system. And maybe it's something I missed, but there's no options of changing the way your AI character performs. Like you cannot change them to be defensive minded or attack minded or heal minded.
No, like the only major thing I saw was the synergy materia.
Right.
Which makes them. It's weird that they added a materia specifically to help control the AI.
Yeah.
Whatever. Yeah. And then, so as a result, but the battle as a result, it's faster paced, but also still has, like a certain level of pacing to it. Like one of the interesting things, because Cure Materia, for example, has regen on it. So you kind of want to cast that early on, but then later in the battle, once it wears off, it's like, okay, when am I going to have a chance to cast this buff again? Because it's a very useful buff.
Right.
Like Ditto Haste is probably used a lot more than people might have used it in the past for the same reason. Well, I mean, that's not true. Haste in the original 7 was still pretty good.
Yeah, I was about to say, no, I did. If you were like flipping and saying slow, then it would be a different story.
Yeah, I know. I mean, slow is still definitely useful, though. and like, even stop actually works decently well in some fights. So, time magic in general is definitely useful. Which I always approve of. Because, getting outside the flavor, the
elemental
flavor magic is always nice.
The elemental.
Yeah. Oh, really? You're going to cast wind again? Sorry, arrow. Oh, you're shooting candy bars at me now, are you? Sorry, stupid arrow joke. Yeah. So the new battle system's pretty good. The characters also play very uniquely, which is really nice. Because, even though, especially, it feels like most of the characters have just kind of a different variation of similar abilities, they still feel unique enough. I can understand anybody who says they have a favorite, and it's not the favorite I would expect it to be. Because, there's advantages to playing as Cloud all the time, plus, of course, he's the main character, so you tend to play him the most.
Right. He's kind of like the Joe Everyman when it comes to a character.
Yeah, and then you got Tifa, who's, has the charge of abilities and everything, and, really focuses on staggering, plus it's probably the fastest attacker.
Yes, I was about to say that she's really based around speed when it comes to those.
Yeah, well, because I think all her weapons have the ability to upgrade your speed. Now, Barrett, of course, is your best ranged fighter, and he's got a bunch of abilities that let him do, some really cool range attacks, and he's definitely got some good ones.
Yeah, man. And a big thing about he's a tank, of course. So you really like to have him in the background, like either firing off stuff, or if you just want like muscle your way or power way through a situation, like that's the person you're gonna pick immediately.
And then Aerith is Mega Man.
Yeah.
What, I'm wrong. Because she's, to help compensate for the fact that they introduced, like, the range mechanic, which we'll get into, I'm sure. Like, she's range-based, so she casually just shoots, like, neutral magic from her staff.
Yeah, she's non-elemental, Yep.
I'm fine with that.
Yeah, it's so much better than her, like, just jumping and trying to hit you with her staff, like she did in the original.
Well, because it kind of fits, too, because, like, you know, one of the things I always liked about Tifa and Aerith was both arguably, like, they took different aspects of the stock characters that you would think they would be. Because the classic thing is you got the tomboy and you got the girly girl.
Mm-hmm.
You know, with the girly girl usually being the more blatantly feminine, usually a princess of some kind.
Right, damsel in distress.
Doesn't do a lot of physical stuff, is more magic-based. And Aerith fits a lot of that, but her personality is more girly girl than
more tomboy. More tomboy.
Yeah, sorry, more tomboy. Yeah, wow. Yeah, she's like turkey tomboy, but she's also, you know, delightfully girly to a degree,
right.
And she's got the very prim and proper dress with the leather jacket, just so it doesn't, you know, she's not what's her nuts from 15.
Yeah.
I gotta be honest, I didn't like that character.
No, not at all.
Yeah. And then we get Aerith, and we're like, oh yeah, that's how she should have been. And then, yeah, like, meanwhile, Tifa, despite being the action girl, she's got the more girly girl personality.
Yeah, she does. She really does.
Yeah. And, like, it's always interesting with those two. Because, like, despite being, like, the badass martial artist, she's the one who really wants to be, like, rescue, like, the princess in a story, right?
Right. I mean, and that's one thing, like, we see in the original and in this one, when it comes to, like, a flashback, is always, like, this situation where she's kind of having Cloud promise, you know, you got to protect me.
I know, it's really fascinating. Which I guess we could probably... Do you have anything else you really want to say? Oh, you know what? Let's talk about the battle system a bit more before we get into the character.
Okay.
By the way, I should probably mention, now that we're, 15, 20 minutes in? Probably more than that. We are going to get into spoilers at some point here. This entire episode is all about
we probably got another, 10 or 15 minutes just talking, maybe even more, just, you know, base stuff. But, you know, that last half is going to be definitely spoiler city.
Oh, boy, yes. Okay, so, yeah, combat, if there's two things I didn't like, and I will freely admit I don't know entirely how to fix this. The problem with the ranged enemies thing is you get into situations where it can be really annoying to fight them as, you know, melee units, because you can't hit them, so it's hard to build up your meter.
Yeah, sometimes you just automatically jump and barely hit anything.
Yeah, especially because they won't let you jump over areas where you might fall down. So like, whenever there's a sequence where there's a flying enemy just over a cliff, you still can't hit them with melee, even though you would normally be able to jump and hit them in midair.
Right.
And that really does disrupt the flow of battle a bit. So it gets pretty obnoxious. It's not as bad as Witcher 3, which to this day still has one of the most annoying fighting aerial enemy things I hated.
Yes.
I just hated. I can't emphasize enough. Like, if there's one reason I think Fallout 4 over Witcher 3 is my game of the year that year, it's that. Fistfights was number 2, probably. like, I can't emphasize enough. And, yeah, it gets frustrating. Thankfully, there's not too many flying enemies, but
when it happens, it's so annoying.
Oh, yeah, even, like, later on when you got a full party and you get buried in the party, so it's easier to pick them off, it's still, like, you know, some of the parts where you're running around the slums and there's, like, flying enemies in the slums, and I'm just like, To say nothing of another sequence, which we'll probably get into at some point, but I don't want to get too far ahead of myself here. Yeah, like, that's probably one of the biggest flaws. And the other one is ice magic, I think, more than anything. Yeah?
Yeah, I was going to bring that up. For me, it's ice and wind.
True, wind's kind of a problem, too. Yeah. I didn't think about that as much. Like, fire and lightning aren't too bad, especially lightning, because lightning's pretty fast.
Yeah, both of those have kind of homing qualities compared to ice and arrow and wind. These ones, for some reason, like, once they stick to a certain spot on the screen, they're done. Like, if the enemy moves, it doesn't affect them.
No, like, because Magic, it has the annoying but understandable feature where if you're in the mid-cast and you get interrupted, you still burn your ATB gauge, but the magic doesn't go off.
And your MP.
Yeah, which is frustrating to a degree, especially because enemies seem to have way more stun attacks than you ever do.
Yes, and for me, it's like certain things that they can armor through. Like, they could be about to cast a spell, and they can still armor through it if you hit them. Whereas if you get hit, you get stunned and lose everything.
I know. Like, yeah, that's one of the things they probably should have also thought about a bit more. But, you know, just a few less anti-frustration features.
And what about your opinion on summons?
You know, I don't mind them. I just wish it was more consistent about when you could use certain ones.
Yeah. Like I said, I love the presentation. I love the fact that, you know, they come on the battlefield. You can slightly control them with the ATB bar. But the fact is the game dictates when you can use a summon. And sometimes it's been really funny because, you know, I'll have a hard battle and I'll never get the activation of a summon ability. And then I'll be like in Corneo's Coliseum, and for some reason it'll just pop up right before the end of a battle.
Well, because, like, the basic rule, I thought, was the first time you break someone's gauge, the staggered gauge,
right,
that is usually when it triggers, but it doesn't always trigger even in some kind.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
Yeah, it's confusing as a result.
Yeah, I just wish they would have stuck with the old way. If you have MP, you can use it, but it should be just like maybe just relegated to once per battle. Like that'd be perfectly fine.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, I think they didn't want to do that because of what happens with hard mode, which we should probably talk about real quick.
Yeah. Which, I mean, even then, I understand it might make it a little bit easier or just a little bit more difficult depending on how you want to manage your MP. But to me, I think it's just giving the player more freedom that would have been necessary. That's all.
No, I agree to a degree. I'm just saying, like, you would have had to account for this. Because, one of the things about the game is there's difficulties, and what is it? There's classic, which does auto attack,
right?
So you only need to dictate the ATB. Yeah, classic mode's kind of boring, I gotta say.
Yeah. I actually tried out classic when I was just grinding in the Coliseum for the weapon upgrades, just to level up the weapons. And you can actually, you know, kind of like interrupt the AI and the computer and do it yourself. But like, it mostly just wants you to just utilize it for just ATB. Like that's the only reason classic is even existing. If you're that lazy, and all you care about is the story, then classic is the way to go. But just like, unless I was grinding and I really didn't care or pay attention, like there was no reason I should have used classic.
No, classic's pretty boring and then easy's easy, but that's fine.
Right.
Taking a shot at a stupid article I saw.
Oh yeah.
Oh, easy is too easy. It's easy.
It's
you
easy.
pleb.
What do you expect?
Like,
I remember when I saw that, I was so just like, why was this even an article? Like, this makes no sense.
Because they want to get hate views, because they're idiots.
Yes,
they don't understand that that's
so
not
ridiculous.
a good thing.
No.
Especially when you're trying to rebuild your reputation. Ugh. Anyway, so easy's fine. Normal's not too bad.
No.
And then hard mode, oh man, they really made hard mode hard.
Yeah.
Can't use items. Can't recover magic between chapters.
Right.
Or except between chapters. Yeah.
Yeah, you can't. The bench, which is a new feature in this one, or normal or classic or easy, what have you, you sit on the bench wherever they're located and you restore your HP and your MP. But in hard mode, you only get to restore your HP. And the thing about it, I've actually tried out hard mode. And it's not that difficult from what I tried out. The only problem I had, and one of the first stages I tried was chapter 12, which was the plate drop section.
Yeah.
And the thing that like turned me off was the fact that the first few enemies, which are just regular guards and one of the sentries, took so long to beat because I was trying to manage my MP and just trying to do like regular attacks. They take so much to be defeated. Like, I just thought, man, this is going to be an annoyingly long thing to do right now. I just need to take a break.
Yeah, because you can't even, like, the only way you can recover is with Mako Shark.
Right.
Because those are the only things that don't go away. So they're more precious than ever because you can't even like casually regen magic, which is insane because that was a thing they added, which was great.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, oh yeah, we're even taking that away. I'm like, oh man. The benches system is actually pretty great because again, not to once again name drop that I've been to Japan, but knowing how precious vending machines with benches are when you're walking around the city, I'm like, okay, that makes sense. And like it also reminds me of Final Fantasy 13 because you'd find save points, which are also where you can buy stuff from stores, right? So it kind of feels like that system, but better. So I do love that they added that to help compensate for not having traditional save points and, having longer stretches before you get to a shop.
Yeah, not having tents.
Yeah. No, it was a good compromise. I liked it. Do we have anything else we really want to... I guess we talked about this briefly, but we should say one of the things they added was weapon upgrades.
Yeah,
The new weapon system's pretty good.
Yeah, I really enjoyed that.
No, yeah, like if there's one problem I have, it runs into some of the balancing issues that these systems have, where it still feels slightly like it's probably one of the better balanced ones. Because each character gets 8 weapons, I believe.
Was it 8 or 6?
I thought it was 8 or 7.
Oh, might
because
be
Final
8.
Fantasy VII.
Yeah, it might be.
Yeah, they get a certain, but they all get the same amount of weapons. Like even Aerith, who joins way later than some of the other characters, and of course Barrett's gone for a good stretch of the game too. But they all get a certain number of weapons, and each one comes with a unique skill you can unlock. And all the unique skills are pretty good.
Yeah.
Like even the ones I don't like that much, I still thought were decent.
Yeah, I was fine with actually leveling it up so I could use them if I needed to.
Yeah, exactly.
Which, like I said, that's one thing to know too, is the fact that once you level it up completely, you can use that skill with any weapon you have equipped. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, which is nice because you get each character has one move they can always use, and then they have their weapon, which has a skill they can also unlock, like that they start with. So everyone starts with at least 2, and then you can get up to like 9 base ones, and then bonus abilities like steal and enemy skill are all based on the this sort of super attack tab too. So they even integrate some limit breaks.
Yeah.
In lesser forms, because like Braver is one of these attacks, and some of the other ones, but they still have the limit breaks too, which is nice. So it was an interesting little system, and it helps give more flavor to battle if you want to do some kind of like super attack when you've got a full ATB gauge, but you don't want to use magic or an item, because items aren't really a super attack, even with grenades.
Even with grenades, yes.
So yeah, it was a nice little system, and the weapons themselves, as your character gets stronger, you unlock more skill points, you get invested in weapons, and even the weapons you get early on, like the Buster Sword, for example, can be useful way up to the end.
Yeah, that was a surprising thing to me because I actually got so comfortable with it. It was one of those things where, if not for the materia slots, or lack thereof, I would have probably kept the Buster Sword throughout the whole game.
Well, I used it about 50% of the time.
Yeah, same
when
here.
You could add more slots. When you could add more slots, I was like, oh yeah, I'm going back to this one. Because it was such a reasonably balanced weapon, and it had a solid amount of slots. Like, the big thing was the slots were linked, so you could really set up, like, elemental damage with your sword and stuff, because, that's one of the purposes of having links for the materia, which is the source of magic. I should probably mention that real quick in case people still haven't... I'm trying, once we get to spoilers, we're going to have to just assume people have played 7.
Right. And like I said, I mean, one thing about it, if you played the original Final Fantasy VII, the materia system is pretty much the same. Just a couple of differently named materia for the same thing. Like all is not all anymore. But man, I really wish they had more. Why did they have more variants?
And they still have a lot in this one.
Yeah. No, I mean, like, for just like the all materia. Like, why just leave me with one? I want more.
Yeah, they call it magnifying.
That's right. There you go. Yeah.
And I did like how they set it up, where it's like, okay, you can use it all the time, but when you use it, you're casting it at, I think it's initially 40% efficiency.
Right.
Yeah. Which, I mean, so if you put it on healing, which is what most people do.
Yeah, because like the original is the fact that we had the stars that once you use it more and more, you got more points and it will level up. So that means you can use it more than just once or twice or up to 5 times. And they will give you like slight stat boost. Whereas with this, it actually helps the effectiveness or opens up the door for more magic depending on what you're using.
Yeah, well, I mean, opening up the door for more magic, that was the thing that, like, elemental magic did.
Right. But now it's across the board, which I thoroughly enjoy.
Yeah, exactly. And, yeah, like I said, time magic, you start out with slow, and then if you quickly get to level 2, you have haste, which is one of the best spells in the game. And, stop has its place, but haste is one of the most precious buffs. Like, more than anything, I would equip Cloud with haste, have him use it a lot. Meanwhile, I have Aerith usually starting battle with regen. And, like, I'm like, okay, those are probably the 2 most important buffs. Just go from there. Yeah, and, no, like, the material system's great, the weapon system's great. Some weapons I just never used because I didn't like how they were set up.
Yeah,
but, I mean,
just a few,
each their own.
Just to use them, just to get the abilities, and once I got the abilities, I was done with them.
Yeah, the nail bed, I think, is one a lot of people don't like.
Yeah, it was one of those ones where from a base stat, I was expecting to get better, and then I was leveling up, and like nothing helped it. So I was like, okay, this is just something I'm never going to use.
Yeah, because it's a crit-based weapon.
Yeah.
Which some people just prefer the base stat. Which is fine. I think we've pretty much milked everything we need to talk about
for the battle system,
Yep. So, okay, from here on out, we're going to get into the plot, and we are going to go spoiler heavy.
Yes.
We're not going to immediately dive into the big spoilers about the end of the game, which has the internet abuzz, because I think we need to talk about some of the other stuff first.
Yeah.
But if you don't want to hear any spoilers about the plot, now's the time to get out.
Thank you for listening.
Yes. Tune in next time, please. Okay. So, I love most of what they added.
Yeah.
I think that's pretty much the easiest way to put it down.
Yeah.
Because the characterization's better in general. Like, Cloud's still kind of... I think Cloud's the only one that suffered a bit because he's more aloof at first and doesn't, as a result, is less snarky and seeming to try to sound cool. He's just kind of mentally lost.
Yeah, it's one of those things where in the original, he had that snide humor. Like, he could cut you pretty deep pretty quickly. But a lot of the times he was still jovial, like he was still trying to show off. Like, which tied into his personality of him trying to be more than who he really was. Whereas with this, he's like just kind of shallow, like, hey, I just want to do this, so I need my money. Like, that's pretty much my whole thing, and if you say something that I don't agree with or I don't care for or sounds stupid, I'll just call you out on it. But it doesn't, he has more of an Advent Children presentation than an original Final Fantasy VII presentation.
Which does make sense when you consider what happened to Cloud right before the game starts.
Right.
In the timeline. But yeah, it does make him a little weaker at first. He still gets some great bits later on.
Oh yeah, and
dear God, is he the cross-dressing sequence? Dear God, is he hilarious?
Oh, it's absolutely fantastic. Like, that was one of the main concerns I came across when that was announced. Like, oh, they're gonna have the honeybee. I had no idea if they would be able to pull it off. So this is actually better than the original. The way they handled that, it was absolutely marvelous. And from a character arc perspective, though, by the end of the game, I am so excited to see how Cloud reacts to things because he noticeably changes.
No, he really does.
Yeah.
I mean, like, Aerith more than anyone, of course, draws that out of him, but the other, especially because then it's, the 2 solo, but even then, like, I guess we should get into this. After having women throw themselves at him the entire game, because first it's Jessie, and then Tifa for a bit, then Jessie's like, ooh, I want in on this more.
But Tifa never really threw herself at him. It was like...
No,
It came across like an old friend that, you have something, there's a spark there, but neither one of you kind of like go on that next step.
Yeah. Like, it's clearly awkward because it's like, they've just met up for the first time. Like, he still didn't have a place to stay.
Right.
Like, that's how... And then, they haven't seen each other in several years. She's still kind of processing, and, he seems a little off, and she's trying to dealing with that. But, like, it's definitely still... Because, she was like, ooh, I would need you to be my knight in shining armor.
Right.
She didn't say that, of course. but like that was something she always seemed to think about him. So, you know, that's lingering there as well. Yeah, but oh man, just all of that, and it's funny because like in the original game, it did seem implied that Jessie had a thing for Cloud, but it was very like
it was like very like she was very flirty, like in the sense of I'm just gonna say something at this guy just to kind of get to him, you know, just to throw it out there, and then I go on about my business.
Yeah. No, like she just kind of quietly swoons over. In this case, she's not quiet.
No. She's almost an assaulter.
Yeah, she is a sexual predator at this point. I think one of the jokes was it's been in between the original and the remake. Jessie spent 23 years in the desert, and now she's thirsty. Because her thirst is real.
I mean, it is incredible.
Oh my god. And like. I love that Cloud's even not oblivious to this. He's like, how desperate are you? Oh, my God. Yeah, so, I guess the thing, because, like, the game does follow the original plot, more or less. They added, obviously, some stuff. Like, Chapter 4 early on is probably the most added chapter yet.
Yes,
because, like,
yes.
1 and 2, more or less the same, just expanded with certain things, which we'll get into in a bit. 3, again... You're going through the slums, but, you know, they added stuff like side quests,
yes.
You know, the day and night system, having an apartment. That all worked. And, yeah, and then Chapter 4 happens. It's like, let's go on a side adventure, which feels like an episode of an anime.
Yes, that just feels completely out of left field. Like,
oh, yeah. Oh, man.
Right down the road.
More than ever, those three characters, Biggs, Wedge, and Jessie, they really felt like they were like, okay, we've got one major aspect to these characters. Let's lean into it.
Mm-hmm.
And they added more. Like Jessie probably got the most characterization out
of any of them. Like you felt for Jessie. Like by the end of the game, you felt for her. Like you wanted her to succeed in the best way possible. Yeah. But like I said, Wedge is still he's just a glutton. Like that's all we know about him. And he likes cats.
There's a bit more to him, but like if Biggs is probably the least fleshed out, Wedge is in the middle.
Yeah. Biggs is like he's just an overthinker. Like that's the only thing we kind of got out of his character. Like he has to look at every aspect of every problem, and sometimes he overthinks things. It just makes it worse.
Yeah, he's the overthinker who's cool and collected.
Right.
Wedge is the guy who just wants friends.
He just wants to prove himself.
He wants to prove himself, and and he just kind of has to, open up to the fact, I'm a big dude. I'm the glutton.
Yeah, I like food, but I also take care of cats. I got a good heart.
Yeah, exactly. Which is fine. And they even had their own signature weapons, because Biggs had, the heavy pistol,
mm-hmm.
They had the little machine pistol, and then I guess Wedge had, a shotgun?
Yeah.
I'm not entirely sure what he had. Some big gun for the big man. Yeah, Part 4, we get that. We get a motorcycle sequence. I'm like, whoa, aren't you early?
Yeah.
We meet Roche, which, speaking of love interest for Cloud.
Oh my goodness, man.
Is it possible to be bike-rosexual? As I was going through that sequence, you know what I was reminded of? Metal Gear Solid 3.
Oh yeah,
Ava.
Yeah.
I only get off my bike when I fall in love or die.
Yes.
He got off his bike.
Yes.
I think he fell in
and
love.
He was still alive. So
Yep.
What does that say?
I really hope that guy shows up again.
Oh, he's got to. He has to.
As non sequitur as Roche is, because that whole chapter is very kind of non sequitur. Even though they try their best to fit it into the plot.
Right.
And it does add to the world. I don't think it's this is the thing. The game is absolutely padded,
mm-hmm.
but padding isn't inherently bad as long as it has a point.
Yeah, I mean, for that section, not only did it add some characterization to Jessie, Biggs, and Wedge, also introduces Roche's character, introduces the motorcycle minigame. It also introduced summons. So, the chapter actually had a lot of things that helped influence not only the gameplay, but then also the story, because there's a big thing with Jessie trying to figure out, why was the explosion so big at the bottom during the first Mako reactor. So, her trying Mako. I've been saying Mako for 23 years.
Yep.
And, you know, it plays into it. So, like, they actually had some root cause for Chapter 4 being what it was.
Absolutely. That was great. Like I said, even the little side quests where it's like, all right, do this stuff. Like, even if the thing you're doing doesn't feel the most important, because some of the ones, like, especially it's like, all right, go kill these monsters.
Yeah, to me, like, the Chapter 3 side quests were the most just stereotypical bad presentation. Like, there really wasn't that much to the grasp on. Whereas to me, like, the Chapter 9 ones where you get to run with Aerith were a little bit more heartfelt. They had some story behind them. And then Chapter 14 was kind of like a mixed bag.
Well, yeah, because the 3 one is also when they kind of focus on some of the NPCs around the slums, which becomes important because those slums get destroyed.
Right, exactly.
So it helps you invest in some of the NPCs you see, even if it's ultimately just characters that are running out. But it's like, you know, okay, these aren't just faceless people we've maybe seen a little bit. No, we have some.
He isn't just the item shop owner, you know, that kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. Like, all these people have characterization. We get Merle, we get Betty, we get the junk shop owner. Yeah, like, that was a weird one, the junk shop owner, because he's only really in there for that one chapter. Yeah! that one bugs me a bit. And we get a lot of foreshadowing to the Phantom Train graveyard.
Yes.
Which, that was interesting.
Yeah, it was definitely an interesting take on the Phantom Train graveyard. Like, the original, they had the ghost and everything, but they really upped it on this one.
Which makes sense, because that was a story opportunity with the whole idea of the live stream and everything, to really kind of explore the supernatural elements of the game. And I fully embrace it, especially because Aerith's connection to the planet, because she's a Cetra, spoiler, or an ancient, you know, that makes sense. Like, that was all pretty well done, and like, I really liked it. I still kind of wish they'd maybe explore it. Like, there's a flaw we'll get to. I just want to save that for last. But no, that was really well done. What do you think about the puzzle with the catwalks and turning off the fake suns?
Oh man, no, that was for me the most tedious part.
Yeah.
Which is saying something, because I played a lot of the later chapters, especially like with the robot hand and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
A lot more just for trophy hunting. But like that part with what was that, chapter 5, 6, and 7?
Yeah.
Until you really get to the Airbuster battle, I would never want to play those again.
Yeah, I think it's 6 is the artificial sun stuff, and then 7's the reactor.
Yeah.
Yeah, and 5 is just getting off the train,
right, and running through the underground subway, pretty much. Like, I would never want to play that again.
Those, could have been short-lived.
Yeah.
I mean, to say nothing of the sewer and stuff as well, because, of course, people love sewers.
Yeah, well, the first time, I was perfectly fine, because, of course, it tied into, okay, we go from, Wall Street, Wall Market, to the sewers, now to the graveyard, to the train yard.
Yeah.
And unlike in the original, you have to go back to the sewers.
Yeah. We designed this map. We're going to use it.
Yeah, I did not. That was another one I did not care for. And to top it off, then we have almost an exact same boss battle in that area.
Yeah.
No, that was unnecessary.
Yeah, some of that padding was pretty obnoxious.
Yeah,
they
that
could
was
have done more.
unnecessary.
Like, that's the thing. The storyline for some of it still made sense. They probably could have done it better.
Yeah.
Like, if we're going to say something about that. Which is, because, like, even the sun thing, I liked that they explained, okay, we have these giant plates blocking out the sun. So what do the people below them get?
Like, why is it always so illuminated? And like, now we find out how.
Yeah,
but
they have,
it was just like
giant sun lamps.
They went a little too long-winded with it.
Yeah, yep. Like, it's like, okay, that's interesting lore. I like that. Why did this have to be a giant puzzle?
Right, exactly.
Although it does have one of my favorite sequences where Barrett thinks about treasure. Speaking of characters with great characterization, man, they keep Barrett being high energy, but oh boy, they really lean into all aspects of his personality.
Yeah, like at first he was like the crazed conspiracy theorist, which I mean ties into the original presentation of him in the original game. And then we see he's a loving father. He's loud. He's obnoxious. He's highly emotional. And then he starts singing. Like he loves to sing.
Yep. And of course, I love his very emotional reaction to Shinra propaganda little stamp. Which, by the way, that's one of my favorite things this game did was the little stamp.
Yes.
Oh my god, that's an adorable song. But Barrett's and one of the things I do like too is because the original game made him look kind of dumb because he was this freedom fighter who's like talking about fighting for the planet, and he basically knew nothing.
Yes.
In this case, he doesn't know as much as the exposition characters do, which makes sense because he doesn't have access to their information.
Mm-hmm.
But he actually answers some questions before and says, "Oh yeah, I know a bit about this. It's this, right?" And they're like, "Yes," but then they continue from what he says, and it's not clear how much of that he knew.
Right.
Sometimes he is surprised, so it's like, okay, they made him more intelligent, which always helps because when you have this boisterous leader who's just kind of an idiot.
And how did he convince
13?
people to follow him?
Yeah, still from 13 is pretty bad.
Right. Exactly. Like if he was that guy, Snow from 13 is Barrett with his IQ turned down to the single digits. Like that's exactly how they had him presented. And people were still like, "Oh, he's such a great hero," because he says he's a hero. But like with Barrett, one of the best things is like him commenting during your invasion of the Shimmer HQ. Like that's the best example to me of Barrett being so much more prepared and so much more knowledgeable of what he's fighting for.
Oh, exactly. Like, yeah, we want to talk about stuff that really helps flesh out the characters. Like, the quirky dialogue and the better, friendship that forms between Tifa and Aerith, which of course has led to people shipping them because why not?
Right.
Everyone has to be shipped with everyone. Like all that stuff's really well done. But yeah, Barrett in particular, I think is one of the who gained the most out of the expanded characterization. Although, don't get me wrong, the Turks also get the treatment pretty well because Rito and Rude, for the heinous stuff they did in the original, they still make them do it.
Yeah.
But they're clearly unhappy about it from the get-go.
And that's one of those things where we actually saw glimpses of that in the original, but usually it was like really late in the game compared to now. Like the only time I really remember them showing like any kind of remorse was when they quote unquote took the day off when they were at Walmart in the original.
Yeah.
Like that was the only time where they were drinking their woes away. Like they know what they're doing is not the best thing in the world, and they're just drinking their woes away. But that was still kind of like implied. It wasn't like until almost the end of Disc 2 before we started realizing, oh man, these guys are so conflicted.
Yeah, because they had that quirky thing in the Wutai subplot.
Yeah.
Which I do hope they do again.
Oh, please, they can't.
Once we get to the sequels. But, yeah, it's just not the same. And then now this time it's like, oh my god, I love it. And of course I love they foreshadowed Rude having a crush on Tifa.
Yeah.
It's great. And of course you actually fight Rude in this game, whereas originally you didn't fight him in the sequences. But, anything else you want to add before we get into? Speaking of things that you didn't have to fight in the original.
No. Like I said, a little padding here and there. Wall market, the whole idea of how to get dresses is just crazy and great. It's just such a marvelous job when it came to it. Side quests, okay, they're a lot better than I think people expected them to be because they're not as intrusive and they're not as long-winded as, say, some of the stuff we've seen in Final Fantasy 15 when they had the side quests.
Yeah.
Yeah, like the side quests, I mean, pretty much in terms of like what they deliver, is on par with what they had on Final Fantasy 15's side quest. They just did it in a way that is not as long-winded and annoying.
Yeah, exactly. And they didn't feel as repetitive. Like some of the, it's still a lot of them are still ultimately go here, kill monster,
right.
Whatever.
But the thing about it when it comes to the side quests is like barely 6 per 3 chapters.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not like it overstays its welcome. It's not like every chapter there's a plethora of side quests you have to complete.
No. And, we haven't mentioned this yet. We should probably say, it really kind of feels like a Yakuza game.
Yeah.
Which, especially with how the side quests are handled. Like, all that just really feels like a Yakuza game, and I'm perfectly fine with that. Like, that's the thing. Like, this is probably the closest a Final Fantasy game has been to a Yakuza game, and I love it.
The only one thing I will say, because we're doing this, of course, after the reviews have come out of certain people, I wholeheartedly disagree with Angry Joe's sentiments about Motorball. I love that boss battle.
I couldn't tell you. I don't watch his stuff.
Oh, no. He says he hated the Motorball boss battle.
I
loved
it. Kind
of
annoying, but once you got the hang of it,
like the first time I was almost there, and I got hit with this giant lava ball that I did not expect and died. But I thought it was such a change of pace, a nice change of pace, because I did not know what they were going to do with them, like how they were going to present them. And considering like the Arsenal boss battle that you had earlier with Aerith and Barrett, like I didn't want another one of those but Motorball. And they gave us like this nice little addition to the motorcycle mini game. I thought it was fine. Like I was happy with it.
The game really did have boss overload, though.
Oh my goodness, yeah. Certain bosses that we never expected to see show up in this game, and certain bosses weren't necessary in this game. Like one of the ones I think about is the Shimmer HQ is the Brain Pod boss, where he can use stop, and of course, if you're not prepared for it, which I wasn't, it's pretty much a terrible fight.
Yep. Well, yeah, because, like, what is it? During the final sequence of the game, you have to fight your first Genova, which is already pretty exhausting, especially because it has way too many tentacles.
Yeah, the tentacles thing, like, I was expecting to have to slay them maybe once at the most, because, I mean, there's a lot of tentacles that show up at one time. And right when I think, okay, now I can start focusing on Genova again, of course they come right back. And it's almost like 3. And unfortunately with one of my favorite attacks, and I know you talked about it too, with Cloud's triple slash. Yeah. Like you'll be aiming for the tentacles, and of course he like wants to go after Genova so badly.
Oh, I know. Like even the triple slash didn't really work in that.
Yeah.
Like if you position yourself right, you could still hit 2, but then the third would.
He usually would go after Genova.
Yep. So you get that. Then you get the fight with Rufus, which, until you figure out the gimmick, can be a real pain in the butt.
Oh my goodness, yes.
Once you figure out the gimmick, I'm like, oh, that's a lot easier.
Yeah. No, that was
probably
annoying.
One of the more... Yeah. Once, and then, the what do you call it? The guard drone dude that you originally fought in the elevator.
That's the Arsenal. That was Arsenal.
The Arsenal. Oh, man. That last part of the Arsenal fight can be really annoying.
Yeah. I am so happy. I just so happen to have Barrier at full health with Barrier. Because if not, we were dead. It was no way.
Yeah. No, I managed to do enough damage in time the first time. So
I thought I was going to be able to. I just ran out of time and it hit me.
Yeah, because I had Barrett charging up Maximum Fury, which, again, one of my favorite moves.
Yes.
All it is shooting things a lot. And then after that, you get the bike sequence with Motorball, and then you get the game's final boss.
Yes.
Okay, so we gotta get into this.
Yeah, now we're hitting spoiler territory. Chapter 18.
Let's rewind, though, to Chapter 2.
Okay.
When we first are introduced to this plot point.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So, when we first got to Chapter 2, I thought, and you see Sephiroth for the first time, I was like, oh, okay, maybe they're just trying to lean into the fact that everyone knows Sephiroth's going to be in the game, so let's lean into that and show him haunting Cloud.
Yes.
Because why not? People will expect this. Let's explore what we can do with this.
And not only that, but we've already alluded to the fact that Cloud's kind of having hallucinations. Because, like, in the first reactor, he sees the black feather. So we just naturally assume, okay, this is just an elaborate hallucination from Cloud.
Yeah. Like, and that's cool. Like, I was actually okay with that. I'm like, all right, they're trying to lean in, trying to do something interesting because people would expect, like, and of course everyone wants to see Sephiroth. So like, show them early and see what we can do with that. Like, I don't hate that idea. And initially what they did wasn't bad. Then the damn Whispered showed up.
Yeah, that was so odd. Because originally, they come around and they start attacking people.
Yeah.
But for some reason, certain people can't see them, certain people can, and then when they come to Sector 7 and start attacking the bar, like, everyone can see them. And at first, they kind of present it as a villainous front. Like, you don't know exactly what they're about. I'm just assuming that they're like some kind of, like, this is spirits of the Genovas-infused soldiers that have died or something. I don't know.
Yeah, well, sorry, we should probably comment before you move on, just real quick.
Uh-huh.
Because they're black robe dudes.
Right, exactly. They're like
much like the freaking Cult of Sephiroth.
Exactly. Who we see very early. We get introduced to one character that's living in the hotel that Tifa runs, and I mean the Meryl runs, and Tifa knows this person, and apparently I'm assuming that this guy is sick. You know, this guy, our sick person that we were introduced with Aerith in the first game, in the original, and then they start helping when it comes to Aerith and Cloud at one point. So I'm assuming that the Whisperers are very selective in who they want to help. Like, they're cool with helping with Aerith, but they don't want to help anyone else.
I know.
And then it just kind of goes in a completely different direction by the end of the game.
Like, yeah, like, this starts to bug me too, because the design isn't really interesting because, like I said, it looks like the Cult. They could have had a different design.
Mm-hmm.
Because, like I said, that just confused me a lot, and it was pretty annoying, and I don't think it was a good idea to do that as a potential, like, oh, you think it's the Sephiroth thing, but it's something else.
Right.
Like, it's not a good twist, though, because they're still just weird cloaked dudes. And then their powers are kind of lame.
Yeah. They just like to circle you and hit you sometimes.
Yeah, I know. Like, yeah, they just kind of float around you, and then they casually push you.
Yeah.
Like,
they might throw you in the air.
Like,
they might throw you in the air a couple of times, but other than that, it's more like a bouncy house.
Like, I get that they didn't want to do a familiar creature, like they didn't want to show like actual Muggles or something like that, or especially because since they're supposed to be sinister. And I get they didn't want to do like angelic creatures because that might come off too much like the ancients. But there was a better option than robed dudes who just kind of robe at you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, this is one of the... Because these are going to show up in the other games. You know it.
Oh, yeah,
probably.
No, they've already established it. Like, this is something that's going to be a big part of the remaining part of the story.
Yeah. Like, they may not show up as much given how the game ends and what they say before that happens. But, yeah. And, I'm just trying to think of how to best present this. Apparently, the Sephiroth you've been seeing the whole game might be the original from 1997.
Yeah. Okay, so no. See, this is the thing. I always took it. Well, not always, but I take it now after seeing the game. And we'll spoil this one because, like I said, we're in the spoiler section now. The final battle that you have in Final Fantasy VII, the original, happens in this.
Yeah.
But it's a little bit different.
Yeah.
And that's the Sephiroth I feel is the original from 1997. The other ones that we've seen in flashbacks and fights and everything else, that is like, the one thing that it definitely showed was that they were one of the reunion people. Like, I just assumed that every Sephiroth until that one was the reunion Sephiroth. Like, they were just fake Sephiroths. Compared, similar to what happened to Advent Children, where certain people could morph into Sephiroth.
Yeah,
that's what I just assumed those ones were until we get to the final Sephiroth, and when he's telling Cloud, "Hey, we got a story that we can change now." And if that's the case, then we know who's working definitely hard on the script.
That's the thing, right? Because it's like. Because they're flat out saying, oh yeah, time is being altered.
Yes.
Like, fate is being changed, which is why we had the Whisper, because they are the instruments of fate, and they're incredibly unsubtle, which is really kind of the goofy thing. Like, I would have appreciated, leaning into that a bit more rather than just having weird ghosts.
Like, it's literally saying these things that we've created in this digital world are pissed off that the developers of this digital world have decided that they want to tamper with our digital world.
I know, it's a very kind of meta moment as a result. And, but it's, what they're hinting at is that the Sephiroth from the original 1997 game, so effectively a Sephiroth from the future,
right,
is somehow imposing his will, if not his body, back in time to change events in his favor. Like, that seems to be the implication.
right.
Which is why so many things were getting disrupted. Like, his influence was... This was why some events were changing dramatically until the Whispered intervened.
Mm-hmm.
Like, most notably, of course, Barrett gets stabbed
Yes.
at one point and seems like he's going to die. And you're like, wait, what?
That
The black
was
guy
a
is going to
shock.
die first? You know, it's like, since when does this happen?
That I have to say, and I know I can't be the only one that was so genuinely surprised and felt like, hey, they're going to switch something up so dramatically. Aaron's going to live and Barrett's going to die, and they're not going to wait. They're not even going to wait. They're going to kill him off in the first part.
Yeah, which is insane because Barrett still has storyline.
Right, exactly.
You can't do that. There's a whole continent where he has to go to where everyone has to hate him.
Yeah, and not only that, but he has to get on the Ferris wheel with Cloud.
Yep. Do love that. But yeah. So, like, that happens, and then, like, at one point it's like, oh, Cloud's not going down this mission, but then they hurt Jesse. All that just to be like, all right, Jesse, your leg's broken. You can't go on the mission now. It's like, really? You couldn't have been more subtle about this? Like, that's what really kills me about the Whispers. They're not remotely subtle.
No, they're like, okay, we do not approve of what you're doing right now. We're going to change everything. We're going to attack you.
Yeah. And so, yeah, like, that's the thing. It's like, so we get this Sephiroth, he's like, I'm going to change things.
But the thing about it is, like, I'm going to change things, but Cloud, you are the main driving force. If you do not help me, it will not work. And that's one of the things that's, like, so interesting because they're presenting it in a way, like you're saying, okay, this Sephiroth has all the knowledge in the world of what actually happened.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, I can understand that considering the fact that we had the live stream. So that is that whole idea of some kind of essence and energy still exists. And it could rebirth a Sephiroth. Like, I'm perfectly fine with that. But like he says, he's going back in time. He's telling Cloud, alerting him of what could happen. You need to work with me so we can fix this thing. And of course, it's going to be to his benefit. But when Cloud says no, that's what to me is like now very interesting. Because how much of what we're going to get now from the original story is going to play into this now remade edition that features Whisperers and a knowledgeable Sephiroth who is trying to prevent his own death.
Yeah, like that's kind of the key. And then don't forget, Cloud says no, but then Sephiroth mysteriously goes, 7 seconds, what will you do?
Right.
And then it shows Zack seemingly surviving the Shinra ambush.
Mm-hmm.
So it's suggested Zack's still alive. Which, that's different, which I guess it's super vague on that, but I think the implication is Cloud somehow changed the past in his 7 seconds so Zack lived.
Right.
Because granted, it didn't take Zack 7 seconds to die.
Right.
It's like in the original game, he gets shot repeatedly, very brutally,
Right.
and dies very fast.
And then you have Big surviving as well. Yeah. And we don't know about Wedge. You know, we don't see a body, so that's always my thing. Like, if we don't see a body, I can't say he's actually dead.
Yeah, well, if we've been done to kill him off after spending all that effort to keep him alive, and I guess that's supposed to make you hate the Whispered, but I'm just like, it just feels...
Yeah, that's just lazy. But, like, the whole thing with Zack, like, I'm so... I understand, like, everybody's saying, like, okay, it's definitely a different timeline because Zack lives. Mm-hmm. But I can't even guarantee that. Like, I'm always thinking about, like, Final Fantasy VIII with Laguna. Like, that whole sequence, you feel like it's happening in real time until you start realizing that, no, this is actually happening in the past. Like, I could see them maybe even redoing the way that Zack dies. If he dies at all. He could be in a lab somewhere. He could have been a Hojo experiment by the end of this thing.
It's true. Like, we could see something very different with him.
Right.
He's not Roche, though.
No.
Don't do that. That would be dumb.
That would be a twist. Wow.
I like how that broke you.
I did not even think about that. Could you imagine they turn Zack into Roach? Oh, man.
Yeah.
No wonder he loved Cloud so much. That makes sense.
Yeah. But, yeah, like, and I think one of the things they're potentially gearing us up for is, hey, we're going to do a timeline where Aerith lives.
Yeah, yeah.
That seems to be what they're gearing up for.
I'm so hoping they do a Steins Gate. Like, where they do a situation where the 7 seconds actually means that you have 7 seconds to save Aerith. And no matter what Cloud does, he cannot save her. And we're going full-blown Steins Gate here with Final Fantasy VII.
Guess we'll see. Yeah. But, I don't know. I'm intrigued for the future. Yeah. Like I said, the big thing I hate more than anything about this whole twist is just how lame the Whispered are.
Yeah. Oh, no. They're absolutely terrible. I understand what they're trying to get at. But like I said, the whole thing is, to me, it's so ridiculous that you have this digital aspect of these characters who are now saying that they're mad at the real-life developers tampering with a digital world that they've created.
Oh, yeah. It's delightfully meta.
Yeah.
And, of course, it really adds to the whole idea of why they call this, even though it's part 1, they called it Remake.
Right.
Because they're remaking the world.
Yeah, and that was something that, once again, had to throw out another YouTuber or Dreamcast guy noted. Like, they didn't put a part 1 to it. Which makes me wonder, like, will this be a Final Fantasy VII, something else with an R, like Redemption, or Final Fantasy VII Reckoning, or Ragnarok. Like, it's not going to be remake every time.
Yeah.
Like, this was the remake. This was the remaking of the world and the lore. Then the next one is going to be, something else with an R.
Yeah, and I guess we'll find out what that entails.
It will be part 2. They will redo Midgar all over again. It'll be the Groundhog Day of Final Fantasy VII.
God damn. I am expecting part 2 to actually cover a lot more ground.
Yeah.
Like, probably end it with the end of Disc 1.
See, I think they're going to go past it. I really do. I thought that, originally, considering the fact that they ended this, I was expecting the end of Final Fantasy VII to be the motorball fight, and then, they're standing at the edge of the bridge, looking off into the distance, and, like, that's it. But that's, of course, not how it played out. I can see them getting at least until you get past Aerith's potential death, if she does, get past the Temple of the Ancients, get past all of that. I can see the point of when they actually summon Meteor.
Oh, yeah.
And, like that part where Barrett wakes up, the sky is red, all that kind of stuff. We have the trial and all that. Like, that's where we start off with part 3. Like, we ended right when Meteor gets summoned.
It's entirely possible, yeah. Guess we'll see. But, no, I am looking forward to the next one. I hope, hopefully, it doesn't take more than, 2-3 years.
Yeah, and that's the biggest issue for me right now, because, I walked away excited, oh, man, but there's so much more, and I don't know exactly when. It's not like with Xenosaga. Like, that's one that I always compare it to when they started announcing, it's going to be in parts. Well, I knew Xenosaga 1 was going to be, part of a larger narrative. And this is the same thing. Like, I feel like I got a good chunk of the narrative. It's just, I know there's more to come, and I don't know exactly when. And unlike with Xenosaga, I didn't have to buy another system to play it, because I know we're going to have to wait and play it on PlayStation 5.
Yeah. So I guess we'll find out. Because that's the kicker, right? I mean, especially because we're going to want to import our save data. Hopefully it works out. But yeah, no. I just hope it isn't too many episodes, and they
better stick to 3, at the most. Do not go past 3.
Yeah, 3 or 4, I would imagine.
Yeah, I know a lot of people are thinking, man, it could be up to 5. No, because, by then, we might not even be around.
Yeah.
We're so old. God.
Especially because they played one of the big hooks early, so we have a guess on what the next big hook will be. But we'll have to see.
Yeah. I mean, but then, it's like they said, the developers and Nomura and everybody else said, they're old too. So like we have to hurry and get this done before we can't do anything. So hopefully we don't have to wait too long. But like I said, this is 2020, maybe 2023.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Guess we'll find out.
Yep.
But I think that we're well overdue to wrap up. This will be our longest for a while.
Before we wrap up, overall, well worth the wait?
I don't know about well worth, but I definitely enjoyed the hell out of it.
Yeah.
Like, I'm hesitant to say, it's my early contender for Game of the Year, because we got so much year left.
Mm-hmm.
But it's definitely feeling the hype on this one, and it's definitely giving me the feels.
Yeah.
So that's always a good sign.
This is the first Final Fantasy game I played in well over a decade that I've walked away and said, you know what, that was the experience I wanted.
Yeah. It was very satisfying.
Yeah, very much so. Yeah.
So next time we'll do a more traditional episode. Obviously, we had to really dive into this one.
Yeah, we had to. There was no choice. This is one of the biggest gaming moments of a long time, if not all time. Because who would have thought, after all these years of us saying that we wanted a Final Fantasy VII Remake, or if they just could do something just to give us a remaster of it, it would ever happen.
And then they really do remake it in every sense of the word. Like, that's the crazy thing. It's like, awesome. So we'll just have to see what the future holds.
Mm-hmm.
But I look forward to it, and I love the fact that now Fate has been told to go F itself.
Yeah.
I just really hope they don't dive into awkward and clunky lore about the Whispered like they do about some of the stuff in Kingdom Hearts.
Yeah, like I do not care about the organization in the same level like the Whisperer. I do not want that. Please do not.
No, please don't. Please just have the Whisper just kind of be a thing now.
Yeah,
like
they've
will of the
been
planet.
established in the lore, but they do not matter to that degree that we need to see them or have them referenced every single time we have a significant moment.
Yeah, because they were beaten, especially. So it's like, all right, they'll maybe show up in part 3 or 4, or maybe at the end of part 2.
They're trying to grasp onto something to stop whatever is going to kill them off now.
Yeah, exactly. But, yeah, hopefully it's not overdone.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you as always for being here, James.
Oh, it's always a pleasure.
Really pushed your time limit this time.
No, that's okay. No, like I said, we had to talk about this one. Like, it really is a big deal. Not only for just gaming in general, but like you said, longtime Final Fantasy fans, period. This is one of those monumental moments in gaming that we never thought would have happened.
No, absolutely. But until next time, folks, just remember, remake may not mean what you think it means. Dun, dun, dun. Dramatic ending.